afternoon. Sorry that it's so hot in here today. We're getting them to work on the AC, but if you can bear with us, we appreciate it. I'm Niles Barnhart, and I stand here today with our AVIAC families and thanking you for being here on this special day as we launch a critical organization to promote security and safety for all Americans and provide an important support network for families victimized by illegal alien crime. The families standing with us today have joined together, uniting to create a support network as advocates for victims of illegal alien crime. Their stories are powerful, and their stories matter. Thank you to all of our supporters and donors who have joined us in solidarity today. Thank you to the members of the media who are giving us a platform to amplify our collective voice. Thank you to our families who bravely stand before you, sharing their stories and standing up for Americans today and tomorrow. Thank you, Commissioner Barnhart, for joining us, providing your unique insight on government and legislative solutions. And a very, very special thanks to Congressman Steve King. Congressman King is the one true leader in the House of Representatives, standing at the forefront of real immigration reform. Congressman King is a man of principle, a man of compassion, a true patriot who isn't afraid to tell the truth and fight for what's right, protecting each and every American life. It is with great pleasure and pride that I introduce Congressman Steve King as our guest of honor as we launch this critical organization.
Well, thank you, Niles, and it's a privilege for me to be here. I know that sometimes people think that it's, that they said to me when thank you for coming. For me, thank you for inviting me. Thanks for letting me be part of this. And for me, I look back on this a fair number of years ago. When I came to this Congress, I was elected in 2002, and I began to sit in on immigration hearings. Now, I paid attention to this for a long time. Clear back in 1986, when Ronald Reagan signed the Amnesty Act of '86, he was honest. He called it an Amnesty Act. Now they call it Comprehensive Immigration Reform. But we know it means amnesty. And when he signed that, I've told people, I thought he would veto it because he would understand this principle of the rule of law. We have to have the rule of law. We have to enforce the law, and then we have to have respect for that rule of law. And if we don't have that, we descend into the third world. And so I thought that Ronald Reagan would understand that and veto the Amnesty Act in '86, and instead he signed it to end the argument and to get enforcement going forward in exchange for the amnesty of those 1 million that became 3 million that were here in this country. I kicked a dent in my filing cabinet when I heard on the radio that he'd signed the Amnesty Act because I knew that the rule of law has suffered a blow that would take a long time to put it back together. Now we're on the cusp of restoring the rule of law and the respect for the rule of law. But when I came to this Congress and sitting in on the hearings, I'm hearing story after story. And I know some friends of mine who have lost loved ones. And I know the looks in the eyes of the parents when they lose a son or a daughter to someone who is unlawfully present in America, here illegally. And every one of those lives that have been snuffed out by someone who is unlawfully in America, illegal aliens, is a preventable death. That's what these families here know. They know that the deaths that they've suffered in their family are preventable. And I think of an accident up in Cottonwood, Minnesota, where an illegal alien ran a school bus off the road. And 4 of those grade school kids were killed in that school bus accident. And I remember bringing this up with my district director as we were going down the road talking about the current event of the day. And I said, I'm going to hear from people that it was just an accident, had nothing to do with illegal immigration. My district director said, anybody that says that, you tell them to go up to Cottonwood, Minnesota, and tell the parents their children would still be dead if we deported the illegal that killed them. That's what we know on the pain side of this equation, is that everyone is preventable. Now when we get to the failure of each succeeding immigration enforcement of the administration, Eisenhower enforced immigration law well. Each succeeding president enforced it less and less until we got to Barack Obama, who simply said, I have prosecutorial discretion. I'm going to decide not to enforce whole vast areas of the law, and I'm going to reward lawbreakers because what, it helps him politically? That seems to have been the equation. And so now this contempt for the rule of law, this demand where people come to the streets and they say, I demand a path to citizenship because I want to be an American. Well, that's not good enough. You have to also abide by our laws, and if you're a confessed lawbreaker, don't be pressing this society for us to grant you amnesty. Instead, we need to enforce every immigration law that we have, and when we encounter them in the streets, then we need to apply the law. In fact, the law requires they be placed in removal proceedings. And so when I look at the tragedy of these families, and I think of the testimony before the committee, hearing after hearing, week after week, month after month, year after year, this began to accumulate in my head, the tragedies. And so in 2005, I commissioned a GAO study to identify the numbers of criminal aliens that we have incarcerated in our penitentiaries around the country, and the percentage of crime that they are committing. And it boils down, then I commissioned another one in 2011. So there's two studies out there. It boils down to this. Roughly 28% of those who are incarcerated in our federal penitentiaries are criminal aliens. That's the definition we use to analyze them, criminal aliens. Now, if 28% of them are populated, they're not there for immigration laws. They're there for a lot of other violations, a few of them for violation of immigration law, not many. But that's way out of proportion to their percentage in society. Yes, we know crimes are committed in greater numbers by criminal aliens in this country than they are by American citizens. The GAO studies, at least two of them, prove that. But we also know this, that even if that were not the case, if we enforced the laws and did so diligently, the children and the family members of these families that are the wars on immigration and the effort to restore the rule of law, these families are the equivalent of Gold Star families. They've lost their loved ones because we didn't do our job in enforcing the law. And so this, though, is a good week because throughout all of that, we went through the debates in the states as we chose the nominees for the presidential candidates. Hillary Clinton and others said we want to grant fast-track citizenship to anybody that'll vote as a Democrat. She was all for all of that. And I thought it's a ridiculous proposition, and I say that a bit facetiously, fast-track citizenship for illegal aliens. Reward lawbreakers, you get more lawbreakers. On our side of this aisle, we had an intense debate. Who would be the strongest on enforcing the law and immigration law? And Donald Trump did something that never been done before by presidential candidates. He brought these families to the forefront. These are the faces that helped elect Donald Trump, the strongest voice we've had in enforcement of immigration law since at least Eisenhower and maybe in the history of this country. And the price that they paid for this, I'm sure that is now being, to a degree, rewarded. But the rewards are to the rest of us. The rest of us will be safer. All of us will be safer because these families stepped up and Donald Trump brought them up on the stage. So here are some of the promises. Build a wall, end DACA, and enforce against sanctuary cities, and also Davis Oliver is another one of those promises. Here's what we're poised to do in the House of Representatives this week. We're going to bring the legislation on sanctuary cities, and we will debate that and we will pass it off the floor of the House of Representatives and send it to the Senate. In the sanctuary cities bill is Sarah's law, written verbatim in the sanctuary city law, copied and pasted, plugged in, Michelle, and to you and Scott, and to Scotty and your family. We are fulfilling our promise. And we're fulfilling our promise to the other families that have suffered these tragedies. And so Sarah's law is written into sanctuary cities, Grant's law is written into sanctuary cities. And then the following day we come with Kate's law. And that's also a promise that we have made to America. Donald Trump's promises, my promises, and the promises that are the reflection of this election. But we're not done. We've got Davis Oliver around the corner. We have a DHS, Department of Homeland Security authorization bill that has in it 10,000 more ICE agents that we need in the streets of America. We've only got 5,000 for 50 states to cover all of this. If we're going to enforce the law, then we need more ICE agents. 10,000 more ICE agents in the DHS authorization bill to come a little later. Davis Oliver, we need to work it a little more. We need a little better message out there. But we are following through, and we need to get the funding in for the wall that's secure the border from the Pacific Ocean in San Diego to the mouth of the Rio Grande River. The president said build a wall. It doesn't mean a virtual wall. It doesn't mean a fence. It doesn't mean in somebody's imagination, and it surely isn't just boots on the ground. It is a piece of concrete infrastructure that people can't run through and that they can't jump over. and one that is secured and protected by the boots on the ground and the technology that we can attach to it or protect it with. And I want to build a fence on the border. I want to move up 150 feet and build a concrete wall, and then I want to put another fence so there's two no man's lands. And we can patrol that with our border patrol, and we can have our technology on it. And if they're in that no man's land, they're unlawfully present in America, subject to the enforcement of the law. So we do all of these things and do those in this Congress. We will have then fulfilled the promise of Donald Trump on immigration, and would be very close to fulfilling the efforts that I want to do. E-Verify mandatory, my new IDEA Act, somebody can look that up. I'm going to start pushing that again because I know that it is a good idea. But I'm grateful to be here today, grateful to know that AVIAC is launched. And this goes back a long ways of people trying to get this together, but it's together now. This is the formal launch of it. I want to stay involved with AVIAC as much as I can. I want to encourage everybody to make your contributions to the organization, keep the funding going, and to reach out there across friends and neighbors. Let's build a strong database so America understands the price that Americans have paid for the failure to enforce immigration law. And I'm looking forward to doing all I can every day with each of you. And I want you to know also that, and some of you do know, anytime I'm back in Iowa, at least, you're in my prayers. And I have on my wrist, I only have Sarah's on my wrist today, though I do wear it a lot, but a whole number of these bracelets are hanging from the antlers in my man cave. So when I go down there in the morning, I think about the pain you suffered, and what your ask is that we do as much as we can to prevent other families from going through what these families have done. And so I just, I congratulate you all for pulling this here together today, and let you know that you're going to stay in my prayers, and when you call on me, I'm going to be there. Thank you so much. God bless you.
Thank you, Congressman.